Hello everyone, how are you all doing? It's Sam here. I wanted to jump on here and do a video talking about POCD. An in-depth look at it, an in-depth overview of my journey with it, how I got better from it, all the compulsions I was doing, all the avoidance I was doing, all the reassurance that it involves, and how difficult it was, sort of my lowest points with it, and just how I felt with POCD. Now, what you've got to remember is, if you're new on the journey, OCD latches to what you most fear. Okay, so it's going to really go after the taboo type themes, the taboo type subjects, the taboo topics, stuff that's very difficult to talk about. Okay, of course, within the OCD community, we understand how OCD operates, but it can be very scary, very isolating, very alone, hopeless, helpless, countless things. This is how I felt along the journey, especially with POCD. Now, this theme I struggled with a lot, okay, because it's linked in with real event OCD, false memory OCD, harm OCD, and I remember the chronic guilt was so high, okay, so feelings of what's the point, or I can't enjoy this, or nothing else matters in life, chronic shame, if only they knew, okay, and just not really being there, meaning that I might physically be somewhere, so I might be out with friends, I might be at a social event, I might be at work. Yes, I will be there, but mentally I'll be miles away because I'll be in my own head ruminating or scared of a thought that's come in, replaying or analysing an event or memory in the past. Okay, so POCD was very difficult, relentless, and OCD is like that, but POCD was a very difficult theme for me because of sort of the guilt and how the grip it had on me, and just like I felt like I couldn't enjoy anything because, oh my God, only if they knew this, or only this thing in the past, or only if they knew these thoughts you were having. Okay, so it can feel very, very difficult and certainly very alone. Okay, so I was so scared that my fear was true. Now, because it feels so convincingly real, okay, OCD can make it feel as real as it can possibly get. Okay, so whatever we fear, OCD within seconds can convince you that it is real. Okay, now I was so internally locked up, terrified 24/7. I couldn't even look at people in the eye. I was that scared. Okay, and like I keep saying, it was because of the if only they knew aspect. Hence why it latches to POCD, harm OCD, all the taboo type themes. Okay, because it's that so scared. Oh my God, what if people thought about you? The fear of rejection, the fear of being abandoned, the fear of being a social outcast. Okay, so fear of just being different to everyone else, fear of being the exception, fear that yours is real and everyone else won't understand you or misunderstand you, or that you're some evil, horrible person. Okay, hence why it latches to that particular theme. Okay, now if I talk about a bit of my experience of POCD and how it operated with me. So a lot of it was intrusive thoughts at really unwanted times, sometimes during intimacy, that was very difficult, completely sort of hit me back. And then the guilt was so high, I felt like I could barely function because the guilt was so intense and so locked on and internally latched, where you feel like you just can't focus, you can't concentrate on anything because the guilt is just so high. Like, what's the point? What's the point of me reading this book? What's the point of me going to college? What's the point of me getting a job and earning money? What's the point of me going on holiday? What's the point of me focusing? Okay, that how it can suddenly grip you because, oh my God, this intense guilt and this intense shame. Okay, during holidays, the build up to Christmas and birthdays. So any important, special moment that you're so desperate to enjoy, you're so desperate for OCD not to ruin, and OCD is going to fight that. Okay, so POCD is going to get in there with those thoughts. It's going to be scanning the past. Okay, a lot of avoidance. I will talk about avoidance later on in this video, but briefly on my avoidance, my life was getting more and more restricted, so I couldn't do anything. I felt like I could barely leave the house, becoming housebound at times because I was so scared. As soon as I leave the house, I'll be triggered at something. Okay, OCD would find something, but even in the house, it'd be chucking in thoughts, bombarding me with thoughts. So it just felt like that my mental prison that I was living in was getting more and more restricted, and just having that bigger grip on me. I felt like I just couldn't do anything to enjoy myself at all. Okay, now I love sport, I love music, Okay, I love reading books, and it would just get in with sport, for example. I was avoiding sporting events because it just bombarded me with thoughts, or the guilt and the shame was so high. I'd feel like, what's the point of even going? If only they knew, especially when you're in a sporting crowd, a football crowd, a cricket crowd, wherever, where it can feel quite intense. You think, oh my God, if only they knew this, only if they knew that, only if they knew these intrusive thoughts that I was having, and that can feel very scary. And hence I was so terrified I wouldn't go to these events because it would trigger me. Okay, music concerts as well, times where I wanted to be in the moment, I wanted to be present, I wanted to enjoy it, I wanted to take it all in, and I'm just there, and it might be dancing along to the music, but in my mind I'm miles away. Like I said, I'm replaying something in the past. I'm going over a thought that came in at an unwanted time, going over something 5, 6, 7 years ago, and just focus on how guilty I'm feeling, or how high the anxiety is. I'm about to have a panic attack because, oh my God, if only they knew about these thoughts, only if they knew this theme I was suffering with. All right, at work. So if you really want to do well at work, if you want to have a successful career, a successful job, financially, career-wise, whatever it may be, OCD is going to try and get into that. So I remember having some really intrusive thoughts at work, and then just running out, crying, running out, having a panic attack, have to go and take a breather. I didn't actually call in sick, but many times I was so close to calling in sick, or I was getting into work late, because I had to sort of confess, and I had to reassure myself that I'm not a bad, horrible, evil person. Oh my God, you've got OCD, these thoughts are terrible, all these words that we say to ourselves. So I was just saying, look, you're the last person that would have this, you're the last person that would do this. And on the phone to my partner, writing massive messages in the WhatsApp groups, constant Googling, and just chasing that certainty that I'm not the person that I fear. I'm not evil, and that I can carry on and not let my life be ruined. Okay, so at work it got onto that. Any high pressured scenarios, situations. So if I go into a meeting or something of importance, something that that it's quite important for you to do well. Of course, there's never a must. There's never, you have to do well as we learn the tools. But something that is quite important and you really want to do well, OCD would go into that, ramp up the heat, turn up the intrusive thoughts, scanning the past. Oh my God! As soon as I'm about to walk, I remember this once. As soon as I was about to walk into a job interview, it would suddenly latch to something 5 years ago. I hadn't thought about it before, and then boom, that intense guilt, sort of taking my concentration away, taking my focus away, feel like I couldn't concentrate, and then the whole interview just sort of in my mind, thinking about something 10 years ago, and just sort of putting on the brave face. Okay, so like I said, it can feel that very crippling, and that you just can't sort of function at a basic level. That's how intense it can feel. It can feel very sort of 0 to 100 really quick as well. So you might be having a good day, and then boom, it'll chuck in an intrusive thought at a really unwanted time, and then just throw you off guard. I remember doing that many times. I remember at times I felt like OCD was gone, like I was cured, like I don't have OCD anymore, I don't have POCD anymore, I don't get really bad intrusive thoughts, I don't get really scary intrusive thoughts, and then boom, it'll chuck something in, and then down the rabbit hole I go. Lots of spiraling, going, oh my God, what does this mean about me now? Sort of OCD would be up in the gears, up in the limits. Because if you're in your mind, if you're saying, oh my God, please don't latch to that, please don't chuck that thought in, then OCD is going to go, right, I'm going to chuck that thought in, I'm going to make you feel really guilty. Okay, and that's how it's going to work, okay? It's not going to latch to something that you don't care about. Okay, you've got to remember that. All right, and it's not from a reassurance point of view. When you're first on the journey and you start learning and understanding how OCD operates, which is very vital to understand that, you start knowing that it's going to go after what you fear, hence why we bring the fear down. Okay. All right, so it really turned up the heat when I least wanted it. Okay, so it's going to try and ruin any important, any special moment, anything that you think it means a lot to you is going to go after that. Okay, and a key point to remember is now where I am on my journey, OCD can be there. Fuck it. I've got that fuck it approach. If OCD is going to ruin that holiday, it can. If OCD is going to ruin that job interview, it can. If OCD is going to come to the football match with me, it can. If OCD is going to come to work with me, it can. If OCD is going to come to me whilst I'm doing this video, it can. I'm not going to put anything off because of OCD. I'm not going to avoid anything. If a thought comes in at unwanted time, so be it. But because I'm 4 years down the journey now, the thoughts have lost their intrusiveness. I'm no longer absolutely petrified of something coming in. I've worked on my fears, I've worked on my beliefs, and I've worked on my perspectives. So it doesn't have that oomph, it doesn't have that power when it initially hits, okay? And if you don't care, it's no longer going to latch, it's no longer going to be firing in with thoughts, it's no longer going to be scanning the past, because if you've... This is stuff that I'll talk about later in the video, but if you're applying the unconditional acceptance, if you've disputed your irrational beliefs and you're no longer as absolutely petrified as you once were, your brain isn't going to be scanning the past for real events, false memories, OCD, because it's going to go, all right, he doesn't care, so what's the point of even scanning the past, okay? I can't remember the last time a real event, false memory latched, because it knows that I have that unconditional acceptance where, and also I've changed my perspectives. I'm not going to completely write myself off and call myself a terrible, evil, awful person. I'm going to view it a lot differently, and it takes that power away from OCD latching. When it originally latches, boom, that oomph that I talk about, it takes that away. Okay, so how did I feel with POCD? How did all those emotions come? So a lot of dread, okay, waking up in the morning going, oh, here we go again, I've got to face the day. Just getting out of bed was a very, very difficult task from what I remember. Just I remember my alarm going off at like 6 in the morning, I'm just sort of leaning over and snoozing it and going, no, I can't bear it, I can't possibly face another day, I can't have bombarded with these thoughts, or really locked onto an event in the past and saying, no, I can't possibly face another day. Or I might have latched to something recently and I'm waking up in a sort of cold sweat, pumping heart, sort of shaking because I'm just so anxious. And obviously when you're sleeping, I'm getting that escape. But as soon as I wake up, I'm back into reality. Or I might get 5 seconds of peace as soon as I open my eyes, and then boom, straight back into the compulsive cycle, the rumination, it's in your own head, looking in the past, those intense feelings of guilt, panic, shame, anxiety, depression, low mood, really low confidence. I couldn't really go and start a conversation with anyone. Like I said, if I had a big pressured day where I had to maybe present in a meeting or deliver a project or at work or whatever, then the confidence would be on the floor because I'd just be so caught up in the past. Or if I had a big exam coming up, I remember having an exam in college and I just couldn't focus. I remember leaving halfway through because the thoughts were just so intense and the guilt was so high. I just felt like, well, what's the point of even doing this exam? Okay, suffering with POCD, suffering with false memory OCD, what's the point of this exam? Nothing else matters. Even if I get the best grades in the class, what's the point? And that's how it felt, because the guilt was so high. So it can just take away any sort of life goal, because it feels like because of this thing 5-10 years ago, because of the thoughts that you're having, it don't matter. That's how it can feel. That's how real it can feel. And this is why I talk about doing things regardless of how you're feeling, okay, because it can feel so intense and it can overtake and sort of latch onto everything, all parts of life, all aspects of life, okay. And I felt like I just wasn't plugged into life. I felt so absent. Just like I keep saying, I was physically at these places, I was physically talking to someone, I was physically dating my fiance, I was physically at a football match, but was I there mentally? No, I was miles away. Over time that will come, and I don't care if I'm miles away, I don't fear that, because a lot of that is subtle fear of fear, really wanting to enjoy a moment, really wanting to be present, and nobody's going to know that, okay? So, let me talk about some of the compulsions that I did along my journey with POCD. Now, there was so much avoidance. I talk about being housebound, okay, and that's how bad it got. I recently did a video with my fiance, and she talked about how she helped me sort of leave the house, but taking me along to places because I'd make up excuses and go, nope, don't want to go. Okay, so things that I avoided children, I avoided family members, I avoided walking past schools, walking past parks, so adjusting my routes to places. Remember when I was walking to work, I go, no, I'm going to go that way, even though it might take 20 minutes longer. I didn't want to be triggered on the way to work, so I then make sure I avoid, and then gradually avoiding absolutely everything until then I'm driving all the way into work because I couldn't face walking anywhere. Okay, avoiding beaches, avoiding swimming pools, and then going on holiday, because that was quite a triggering place with POCD, where I was going to make eye contact with a child and think, oh my God, or a groinal response is very difficult as well. With groinal response, you've got to remember that OCD is hijacked all feelings there. And that's how it can mimic anything. So anything that you fear, if you're hyper aware of anything, OCD is going to fire into that. It's going to zone into that. Okay, so if you're so scared of something coming in at that time, then OCD is going to go after that. All right, so you've got to remember that OCD is hijacked, hijack the brain, hijack the feelings, and it's gonna make it feel as real as it can get, with all the false attractions as well that come with POCD, and it can be very, very terrifying once you don't know how OCD operates. When you know how OCD operates and how it works, when you gain knowledge on that, you're gonna go, oh, there we go, there's OCD, and you're not gonna be running off having a panic attack. You're not gonna be avoiding these places as much. Of course, it takes time, but when we become more aware, we become more wise to OCD's tricks and what it's gonna do. Okay, how it's gonna scare you and how it's gonna latch, just so you can't tell if it's real or not, and just nestle just out of reach, where you're just having to work it out, or feel like you're having to work it out. Okay, it isn't going to go on something that you know. It's going to have that doubt, even that 0.00001% doubt. It's going to latch to that. Okay, so that's a key point to remember. Like I said, I avoided holidays because I didn't want that to be ruined. I didn't want to be triggered on holidays. Okay, watching TV. Adverts. I remember a child would come on an advert, and then I'd go, oh my god, I got to turn that off, or switching off, or just changing channel, or watching TV channels where there's no adverts, or I'm watching the news was very triggering as well. It might be a story about a child or about a school, and I'd have to quickly turn over because I was so scared, triggered, instantly straight away, walk out the room, change channel, and just watch something completely in my comfort zone. So watch something on Netflix I know just wouldn't trigger me. Okay, you see all this avoidance. Films, if there was a child on a film, I'd quickly switch it off. No, I can't watch that, or just wouldn't even go to the cinema at all. Avoid all types of films on Netflix. And then gradually, you don't know at the time, but then it's getting more and more restricted because OCD is going to find something it can latch to. Even just like anything that you associate with your fear. Like, let's say a colour or a word, okay? So you could be reading a word on the telly. You could be reading a word on a book. All right, you could be reading a word on the bus, an advert on the bus or something like that, and then boom, triggered, and then I'd avoid getting on that bus. Even a song lyric, because like I said, a word that I'd associate with my fear, and then I wouldn't ever play that song again. Remember it latching to names. So any name, so let's say I got a fear of the name Sam, which is my name, and then I would avoid any name Sam. Wouldn't want to. So sort of anyone who was called Sam, I'd have that anxiety spike, and it's just crazy how it can go down that route. But that is sort of that's the grip that OCD had on me, because I was so petrified, I was so terrified. When I talk to Rob about it now, he goes, when I first come on the first couple of one-to-one sessions, I was so locked up in that internal cycle, in that internal state, where I couldn't see out of it. You could tell the questions I was asking was so reassurance. I just the internal guard was up, like looking through the misted glass that we talk about, where you're so, you can tell someone's so caught up in their own mind, although they're there looking at you, but they're not, because they're miles away. All right. Avoided a lot of intimacy. Okay, scared of thoughts at unwanted times. That got me really bad. Like I said, the guilt was so intense, and the shame completely ruined the moment. Felt like I had to stop whatever I was doing and go, no, I can't do that, and avoided that for ages. Because I remember that. I remember having that before a holiday once, and then the whole holiday, that's all I was thinking about, because I was so scared. I go, why did that thought come in then? It's going to go up really unwanted times. I mean, if it's chucking in a pink elephant, a thought during intimacy, you're not going to be scared of that. But if it's chucking something you really don't want to do, especially during times of intimacy or times that you really don't want it to ruin, then that's why it latches, and then that's why that guilt is so high, because you're thinking, why does it latch to that? Why does it grip to that? What does that say about me? Why is my brain chucking in thoughts like that? Okay, but OCD knows you're scared of it. Sporting events, music concerts, like I've said, theatre, cinema. My life was getting more and more restricted, because it was finding absolutely anything and everything to be triggered by. Okay, like I talked about, like even just lyrics in a song, I could be triggered by that. Turn the song off, turn the album off, turn the artist off, and never listen to him again. Okay, that is the avoidance. That's the subtle avoidance, stuff I don't really talk about, but that's how big it was. Even just conversation about children. So let's say someone, a family member or someone at work, as soon as they would speak about their children, I sort of change the topic, change the subject, or pretend I can't hear, or just go and walk off and do something else, run out the room because I was so scared of having an unwanted thought or saying something out loud and then, oh my God, why did you say that? Okay, so I had avoided asking about people's children or asking about family life, or just sort of how is your child, or how is your son, or how is your daughter. I'd avoid any conversation like that. That was too triggering. So I'd stick to very basic, in the comfort zone, very easy conversations where I couldn't be triggered. Okay, I did so much avoidance. I remember a biggest trigger of mine was talking about my own children with my fiance. Talk about having kids, and oh my God, I'd run out. I know I wouldn't even, any sort of subtle where I could tell the conversation was going that way, I would quickly try and change the conversation, quickly try and change the topic, change the subject, so I wouldn't be triggered. I wouldn't have that discomfort, and I'd stay in my safe place, stay in my comfort zone, okay, because I knew that would trigger me. I go, oh no, I can't speak about that, change the conversation. Okay, that was the grip that POCD had on me. Now, people who speak to me now, I'm in the WhatsApp groups, I do videos on here, I do voice notes and videos in the WhatsApp groups. You probably can't see what I was like if you're suffering with some of the stuff that I'm saying, if you can relate to it, that I was really in your shoes. I completely understand how that feels, how real it feels, how convincing it feels. It just feels like it just feels like the fear is real, feels completely like there's no way out, feeling trapped in your own mind, and you can't see how someone can get on the other side. But I'm sort of the inspiration, I'm your hope there, that you really can overcome POCD, no matter how challenging it is, no matter how difficult it can be, and how real it can feel at times. Okay, another example would be pictures on a desk. Okay, so I remember at work, there'd be a picture of a child on a desk, and I'd run out, or I'd ask to move desks, or I felt like I'd be writing an email, say, and then if a picture's over there, all I could think about was that over there, just don't look over there, don't make eye contact with that picture. And then if I did, the trigger would so high, the feelings of panic and anxiety through the roof, and then I just dread going into work, the shame was so high. Because I just felt so alone, I couldn't possibly talk about what I was so scared of. And then someone would go, Sam, why are you panicking? Why are you anxious all the time? And I go, oh no, I'm just suffering with anxiety, but not knowing that POCD was very, very intense. Even the mention of children, sudden panic, sudden trigger, sudden anxiety, okay, and just felt like I had to escape. I had to quickly run out the room, and that was the grip that POCD had on me. Okay, if someone's showing me a video of their child, and then I'd be like, no, I can't look at that. Like I said, make excuse why I've got to leave the room, pretend I'm not listening. Quite rude, isn't it, when I look back now? But no, I can't listen to that. That would trigger me. Like I said, the guilt be very high, so I do all I can to avoid that, completely change the topic, change the conversation, pretend I'm not listening, okay, and just, yeah, the complete grip it had on me. Very, very sad looking back now, but I appreciate and I understand why, because it feels so convincingly real and it feels so scary. Avoided social media. I come off Instagram, and that was because of the fear of accidentally liking a photo on Instagram. And oh my God, and I'll be compulsively checking my likes just in case I didn't accidentally like a picture of a family, a picture of a child. And oh my God, that what does that say about me? Does that mean my fear is true? Okay, so the compulsion that I did there, I'd avoid social media, I'd avoid Instagram, I'd avoid Snapchat, I'd avoid Facebook, I'd avoid Twitter, just in case I come across that. And then, oh my God, panic very high, guilt very high, and then just analysing it. When I went on Instagram this morning, did I like this? Did I view someone's story? Did I write a message? Okay, did I write a thought out? Okay, that ruminating all day about that. And then, like I said, the guilt then feels very intense because of that. Okay, fear of going on Google is something I had a lot, just because I'm going to type out my fear, type out something I shouldn't, so I then avoid going on Google. I'd avoid going on my laptop, avoid going on my computer. So scared, that complete grip on me, sort of turning off my Wi-Fi, turning off my mobile data just in case in the night I accidentally got on my phone and typed something. I'm sure these things that you can relate to if you're suffering with POCD, suffering with any sort of guilt-related theme where you're going to wake up losing control, things like that. Okay, very, very difficult. I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure you can relate it if you are suffering with these kind of themes and these compulsions and these avoidance cycles. Okay, because I know it was just endless for me. There was so much avoidance. I could sit here all night and talk about my avoidance. I've already been here for 25 minutes and I spoke about it for so long, but there's just so much more avoidance that I did. Point where the mental prison was this big, and it was getting smaller and smaller and smaller to a point where I was housebound. Felt like I couldn't even leave the house. But that did no good anyway, because the thoughts were still there. Even watching something on the telly, POCD was there. Okay, so avoidance has to stop. All right, so that's what I did with avoidance, but I don't avoid anything now. You can't be avoiding family members, you can't be avoiding children, you can't be avoiding walking past schools, and you can't be avoiding watching TV, you can't be avoiding watching the news, you can't be avoiding having conversations about children, you can't be avoiding having conversations with your partner about having children. Okay, you can't be avoiding stuff associated with the fear, okay, because it fuels the cycle, it's showing your brain that that's scary, okay, so we need to go towards our fear, okay, and this is why exposures are very important in OCD, especially targeted exposures. Okay, really get under the fear and show the brain is not as scary as once perceived. Okay, other compulsions that I did, I talk about confessing a lot, endless confession. Okay, what you've got to remember is confession that never delivers on its promises. Okay, OCD never delivers on any of its promises. With reassurance, with Googling, with asking the same question multiple times, it's never going to deliver on those promises. Okay, if I give you an example, I might confess something, it might be a real event, false memory in the past, and then honestly, give it an hour, give it a day, give it a week. Rarely made a week. It'd normally be a couple of hours or the next day. OCD would find something else, it'd be scanning, and then boom, I'd have to go down the confession cycle again, get temporary relief, and then boom, something else. Or confessing the same thing over and over and over and over again because you feel like you didn't explain it correctly. You feel like the other person doesn't understand it. Massive, great messages in the WhatsApp groups, in the Facebook group of just endless confession and just trying to seek that temporary relief, which of course is understandable because we're so locked up in a guilt cycle. We just want any bit of relief. We want rid of that uncomfortable feeling. But long term, it gets us nowhere, okay? When we work on our beliefs, when we shift our perspectives, and we see that confession really doesn't work. I don't confess, I don't have the urge to confess anything now, okay? But I was so locked up in a confession cycle, okay? But surely you look back and go, where has confession got me in the past? Okay, really gets you nowhere long term. Okay, especially POCD linked with real event, false memories, OCD, false memories in the past, sort of scanning first thing in the morning. As soon as I'd wake up, 5 seconds a piece, and then scanning either something that's been lapsed for ages, and then I'd remember, here we go again, got to go for another day with this memory in the past, got to get another day through these thoughts. Why did this thought come in then? Who do I tell? Who have I got to confess? How do I get rid of this really intense guilt, shame, panic? How do I get rid of it? Okay, why me? Why have I got this brain? Why does my brain chuck in these thoughts? Why does it latch to this thing in the past? If only this thing didn't happen. If only they didn't. If only they knew. Okay, all these things. As soon as I wake up in the morning, just end this rumination. Okay, just felt so automatic. It felt like as soon as I opened my eyes, it was there. I felt like I could do nothing about it. But that's how it feels. It feels automatic because of the fear was so high. When I started bringing the fear down, that is when the rumination came down. That's a key point to remember. Okay, constant feelings of what's the point, feeling like nothing else matters. Okay, constantly asking questions over and over and over again, seeking reassurance, writing sort of mantras in my notes on my phone, mentally repeating stuff in my brain, saying you're not an evil person, it's just OCD. OCD's latched to this thing in the past, you didn't do anything wrong. Thoughts of thoughts, look at it like a cloud going through one ear and out the other. All these mantras I have noted down on my phone. Okay, it's just OCD. You're not your OCD. All these things that I'd be telling myself over and over again got me nowhere. Long term, nowhere. Short term relief for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour at most, and then boom, something else. Okay, I remember I talk about it a lot, but I used to cry a lot. I used to just sort of lie on the floor and just sort of feel like I can't do this anymore. My fiance got the brunt of that, just sort of crying all the time. Yeah, it's really, really bad. But I talk about that a lot, but my lowest points. But I don't really need to go into that again because I've covered that in all my previous videos. But yeah, very, very challenging. Sort of just getting me sort of to go to things and just getting me to sort of do anything in life and sort of push myself because I was so consumed and so internalized in the guilt cycle. I was so absent to life. It's a common word that I use, a way of describing it, of how it felt. So that's how it felt with me and the difficulties of it. I'm sure you can relate a lot to that. I'm going to go over briefly now of how to get better. Briefly, of course, I can't speak all night about that. If you're interested in any of our webinar one-to-one services where we do cover this, it's quite customized response. It'll be sessions related to your fear, how to get under those fears. Please email phil@ocdrecovery.com, and so we can go over and set some targeted exposures, sort of set the building blocks of building a healthy life structure, look at those irrational beliefs, look at those perspectives, keeping you stuck in the now. Okay, but these are just some brief things that helped me get better. Firstly was becoming more aware of how POCD operates, understanding that how he's going to latch. Like I said earlier, with groaning responses and intrusive thoughts at really unwanted times, I've got to be aware of that's what he's going to do. That's why it feels so scary, because I fear that the most. That's why he's going to do that. Okay, so becoming aware of how it operates in that regard. Applying unconditional acceptance, absolutely massive with POCD. Self, unconditional acceptance, unconditional other acceptance, and unconditional life acceptance. Okay, a key point to remember is acceptance isn't agreement. That is key. Okay, I remember that was scary at times. You can strongly dislike an act, you can strongly dislike something, but you can learn to accept that over time, unconditionally accept that. Okay, disputing irrational beliefs and shifting perspectives, reading the books on the reading list. Set out on the OCD Recovery website under the resources tab. How to Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable by Albert Ellis is a very important book for breaking down beliefs, and also The Myth of Self-Esteem, absolutely vital for applying unconditional acceptance. Okay, really applying it to your thinking. We need to move away from our black and white, catastrophic, awfulizing, terribilizing, very rigid thinking. Okay, all the stuff that contributes to how we're feeling, all the stuff that contributes to the guilt. You've got to remember, nothing in the past warrants chronic guilt. It's all our perspective in the now. That's why the guilt can feel so intense. Okay, that's why those uncomfortable feelings can feel so intense. The depression, the shame, the panic, the really strong pumping 24/7 anxiety. It's your perspective in the now of what you're telling yourself, the current rigid irrational beliefs that you're holding. Okay, targeted exposures are absolutely crucial when it comes to these guilt-related themes. A lot of fear of rejection, a fear of being abandoned. Okay, these are all fears that we can break down either through exposures or breaking down beliefs. Okay, and life structure is absolutely crucial as well. Okay, like I keep saying, setting those building blocks, taking those small steps to getting our life back, and not letting OCD call the shots. Okay, so things like in a healthy life structure can be exercising, getting back into work, reading books, eating healthily. These are just sort of quite basic things. I know they can sound. And the last thing you want to do when you are suffering, when I was really suffering with POCD, the last thing I wanted to do was go for a bloody run, because I felt like it felt like the battle and the war I was in my own mind. Going for a run just felt like too much bloody effort, and that's the last thing I wanted to do. But when I took that step, running 1 kilometre, running 2 kilometres, running 3 kilometres, I'm going to run 5 kilometres, and then just using that healthy distraction, okay? Because it's not an overnight quick fix. You don't wait for OCD to be gone. You don't wait for POCD need to be gone, and then you start living your life. You need to live your life with bringing it along for the ride, regardless of how we're feeling, regardless of what theme it's latched to. Okay, regardless of what OCD is latched to, whether it's latched to something in the past. Okay, we need to be starting to live in our life in the now, whether that's exercising, whether that's getting back into work, setting career goals, work routine. Okay, setting sort of life challenges away from OCD. Go into stuff you enjoy, so like say sporting events for me, music concerts for me. Okay, socialising, going out with friends, seeing family. Okay, we need to start getting back into that regardless of how we're feeling or regardless of what OCD is latched to. All right, so that's really everything. I can't go on all night speaking about this because you'd have switched off by now, but I'm already going on 35 minutes. I hope it's been a very informative video for you. I hope you can relate to it. I hope it provides you with very much hope, inspiration, because when I was really suffering, when I was at rock bottom, I'd have loved to have a video like this where I could relate to someone and see how someone got from down here to overcoming overcoming POCD, a very difficult theme, how you can do that. I mean, I'm 23, suffered from OCD from a young age, and I've been in your shoes. I know how that feeling feels when you wake up in the morning, and there's scanning, and as soon as you wake up, the guilt's there, the pumping anxiety, you're waking up shaking, feeling like what is the point even getting out of bed, they're really low, just it's completely exhausting, feeling like you're fighting a battle, feeling like you've got a second job, or third or fourth job where it's just constant rumination all the time, very tiring, lots of headaches, a lot of physical anxiety with it, a lot of physical symptoms, a lot of stomach problems, fatigue, okay, all the stuff that comes with OCD, and especially comes with POCD, with how sort of intense and how challenging and how convincing it can feel. Okay, so I want to give you that hope. I hope it does. And please keep pushing through. I urge you to get through those really, really tough moments, really scary, isolating, petrifying, terrifying moments where you feel like you feel like it's real, and you feel like there's no way out, you feel like you're utterly trapped. Okay, so please keep pushing through. We've got one life, we've got one chance at recovery. Let's grab it with both hands. Okay, why not? What's the alternative? Let's do all we can to get better from OCD. Okay, you've got this. Anyway, you take care. Have a lovely day. Have a lovely evening, wherever you are in the world, whenever you're watching this video. And look after yourself, and I'll speak again. Bye-bye.